Welcome back to my channel. This is Coach DC from All 22 Films. My first Lions-centric film study / commentary of training camp season is going to be about Alim Mcneill, a guy 18, almost 19 months removed from an ACL injury in 2024. I think if he can return to full health and full explosiveness and form, it could be a big factor for this Lions defense that's trying to recoup or make up for the losses of Terrion Arnold and then Brian Branch and Kirby Joseph for some period of time. I've got a significant amount of film here to talk about, and I'm going to try to draw comparisons between any number of things. This is 2024 film. It's going to be a split sack on a four-man rush scheme. I believe Detroit needs to utilize more of this. Kelvin Shepherd more actual defensive linemen, 4 defensive linemen on the field rushing. I'm a fan of the 3+1 scheme that they used a lot. Obviously, it was very effective against the Ravens in Week 3 last year. They generated 7 sacks from that, 3 of which were by Muhammad. This is a split sack against the Seahawks in 2024. What I like about this from a McNeel perspective and why I picked this as the first play is, first of all, he's got a great get-off. He's very violent with his hands, quick hands. And the thing that I like most, or I want to try to point out to you at least, is that it's his second or third strike, sometimes fourth, hand movement that allows him to win. He almost reminiscent of like a boxer, an MMA fighter who doesn't throw one strike at a time, throws 2 or 3 or 4. You can see an initial push and then 3 hand moves or swipes. He's able to get in there and finish off with Onwuzurike. Like I said, this is 2024 film. He was an ascending player at that time. 5 sacks, 10 quarterback hits the year before, 2023. And then up to around this point of 2024, 3.5 sacks, 7 quarterback hits before the unfortunate ACL injury. A few plays from this absolute destruction of the Cowboys in Week 6 of 2024. A game could have been like 60-7. I watched about the first 3 quarters of it. The team was loaded for Detroit that season. You guys obviously know that. Injuries really derailed the defense. This is a screen, and the right guard is going to release off of him. I included it because of the burst. And when he came back in 2025, I didn't think that McNeel had the same get-off. I didn't think it was as powerful. Pre-injury, another thing that I like about McNeel is from this position, when he gets locked up with, typically a guard, but sometimes a center, he's got the ability to separate or get to the running back or the quarterback. Now, again, the guard is releasing him intentionally here, so there's nothing that McNeel did necessarily to be able to get to Dak Prescott. It's a design screen, a late one, a slow one from a Dallas perspective. Also, a really amazing play by Jack Campbell. I mean, he didn't just play great in 2025. Campbell was spectacular the year before. For me, as far as McNeel goes, when he's healthy, and I didn't think he looked 100% when he returned in 2025, Week 6 or Week 7, I believe. This is still 24 film. I think what I would like to see McNeel used more on is either lined up on the same side as Hutchinson. He's not here, by the way. Okay, they're separated on different sides. Or as part of some type of stunt or pick, which is what you see here. Campbell, I think, is off screen in coverage. The pick is actually going to be run by Malcolm Rodriguez. In 25, there seemed to be more usage of McNeel, a little bit wider as a 5 technique, if you will, number 1. And more, the pass rush scheme, I thought, was a little bit more limited for Detroit. Basically, there was less of these types of picks, if you will, a reliance, and in some cases, as the season progressed, almost an over-reliance on the 3+1 scheme. Like I said, it was very effective against Baltimore. It was really effective earlier in the year. I have a theory that basically I think NFL offenses adjusted to or became highly aware of what Shepherd was doing in certain situations. Of course, the injuries and losing players like Branch, not having Joseph at his disposal, Arnold going out at a certain time was a big factor. Here's the pick from Rodriguez. McNeel folding over the top. They're just occupying this offensive lineman here, Chase Beebe, I think, such that he can't help on that stunt. I'm not saying that McNeel can't do these things. Again, he's a year and a half out from the ACL injury, only 26 years old, right? I guess what I am saying is I'd like to see a more creative pass rush plan overall. This is a totally overpowering snap. I didn't necessarily see this level of strength off the snap immediately in 2025 as much. The fullback here is going to step up into the A gap, and Hutchinson is rushing off the edge, so he's getting the attention of the right tackle. I watched this a couple of times. The first time I thought, okay, maybe the right guard steps on someone's foot or someone steps on his foot. No, this is just a clean ass whipping by McNeel. The right guard's already being dislodged and pushed backwards before there's any foot contact with his teammate, the running back here. Hopefully you guys understand what I'm saying. Basically, sometimes when you see something like this, especially on the inside of the offensive line, you think a guy got tripped and it made it look like more of a highlight reel play. No, that is just complete domination by Alim Mcneill. I would like to see him on the same side as Hutchinson more often in these pass rush situations. For good measure, let's zoom it in some. I do actually really enjoy using the magnification option for the Once Sports Analyser. It's a program that I've got used to. I'm personally sponsoring or trying to promote their brand and their company, generally a soccer usage as far as technique and breaking down film, but they're moving into the American football market, mind you. And I think it's a great program, number one. It's a lot of fun for me, number two. I'm trying to utilize it as much as possible. I really enjoy the magnification feature, especially in situations like this where you can focus in on what a player is doing and what does or does not happen, in this case with the right guard's foot. In some ways, some of the film that I've seen of McNeel over the years, but in particular 23 and 24, kind of reminds me of Nnamdi Madubuike. I wouldn't say that McNeel is as dominant against the run as Madubuike is. He's just very good there. I guess what I would offer to you is when Mike Macdonald started to use more moving targets, if you will, as a defensive line, differential four-man rushes, not just line up with these four and rush with these four, rely on some more stunts. That kind of unlocked Madubuike as well as Jadeveon Clowney and Kyle Van Noy. A couple of more plays here from 2024 against the Texans, that epic comeback win in the second half. There's a lot of 3+1 usage in 2025 where the rush scheme was kind of simplified. And look, I know the Texans offense has been terrible here. I like this one for McNeel for a couple of reasons. Number one, there's no Hutchinson on the field. We get a true one-on-one. The Texans are operating with the tight end and the right tackle on Josh Pascal, and then the left tackle over there on Muhammad to the other side. This is a game, of course, where Detroit outscored Houston 19-0 in the second half. I like this because he's got really good awareness during the play. Even though at the beginning the offensive lineman has his hands on the inside, McNeel can often find a way to win later on in the snap. And here you can see he's using his left arm to get some control and then rip under. It's not an extremely explosive rip, don't get me wrong, but it's a win. I like his ability to win with the second or the third contact or strike, if you will. And again, I like to zoom in as much as possible to try to give you guys an idea of what we're seeing as close as possible to the action, especially when we're talking about O-line or D-line play. You can expect to see more of it on my channel. Another aspect of McNeill's game that I really like is his contact balance, and that's going to show up on the next play. Again, it'll be the last one that I show from 2024. Same game, like I said, that second half comeback win against the Texans, Week 10. He's lined up as a 3 technique here off on the right-hand side. This is where the Madubuike comparisons for me really kind of show up. He hasn't been as productive. I know that Madubuike, had a ton of sacks in 2023, so that comparison might alarm some people. Prior to that, he had similar-looking stats as Alim Mcneill. But in any case, this is a jet dive concept. So you're getting jet motion left to right for us on the screen, but right to left from a Texan standpoint. And then there's a split zone piece attached to it. So we're talking about this tight end right here is going to work across the heels of the formation. He's going to go get, I think that's Pascal off on our right side. This is when the Madubuike comp really popped in my mind, and it's McNeel staying in his gap. He's a B-gap defender as a 3 technique, and they're trying to combo him. Some would say scoop him. It's a little bit of both. I mean, the guard is trying to work up, and what I like here is that McNeel is basically operating as a 2-for-1, so they can't independently rely on the left tackle. Excuse me, let me get those lines off the screen. That can't independently rely on the left tackle to scoop him. Scoop means the run concept is initially going away from him. Now, Joe Mixon actually tries to bring this back down. down the middle of the field, but initially moving away from McNeel. It's either run to or run away. In this case, it's away. So they can't scoop him with the backside tackle, number one. Number two, the guard wants to work up to the second level. It's a split zone concept. So they want to handle the backside inside linebacker. They don't handle either of them. As an aside, I think Campbell kind of fits this wrong, to be honest with you. It's a 4-3 look. You got three inside linebackers. Campbell is the Mike. I believe that they spend so much time in a 4-2, against 11 personnel, that he's used to fitting underneath of this kick-out block that's happening by the tight end. I'm talking about the tight end sifting along the heels of the offensive line and then kicking out, or in this case, going low to cut the backside D end. And so Campbell, I think, is kind of fitting this wrong back here when that's where the backside inside linebacker would fit. I believe Campbell really is more so going to be responsible for this gap. Now, that gap moves. In any case, McNeel makes everything right because he occupies two. He occupies the left guard and the left tackle. That's, again, the type of play. That's where this is literally the play that started to put that comparison in my mind. Keep in mind, I've seen a ton of Ravens film, obviously, over the years. Matabike's always been able to do this. It's impossible to scoop him. And that was the time in 2025 in week one where I said, okay, something doesn't look right because Matabike is getting scooped. Scoop basically means a backside tackle is able to overtake a three technique with or without much help from the left guard. Really should never happen, if you ask me, at the NFL level. But in any case, it's a great example for McNeel. Contact balance, his ability to stay on track towards the football in the direction the ball is going. Like I said, the ball is going in this direction, our left, to the right-hand side of Houston's offense. McNeel stays in the gap, uses his hands independently while he's on the move towards the football despite the contact from the offensive line. I think it's a perfect example of what we hope to get in 2026. Like I said, we're 18, 19 months out from the ACL injury. They do have, I think, an underrated group in there inside at D-tackle between McNeel, Onwuzurike, Tyleik Williams will be in his second year. I actually like Lacey a lot. There's other players as well. Wingo is a little bit underrated, in my opinion. He just hasn't gotten consistent opportunities yet. I've got a significant amount of film from 2025. He obviously didn't have as much impact statistically. I'm also going to talk about where he was used in a manner in which I didn't think necessarily displayed his skills or put him in position to attack the quarterback as much. In any case, this is a second quarter pass play against the Vikings. You get another, I think, idea or example of how McNeel can take advantage of one-on-ones. For whatever reason, they're double teaming DJ Reader here. Obviously, of the two between McNeel and Reader, we know who the better pass rush guy is. It's in the second quarter. Like I said, this is one snap before Terrion Arnold's really ridiculous interception running all the way across the field where he basically took the ball from the wide receiver. I like McNeel when he's got this violent get off and then the club with the inside hand. His right hand here, I'll zoom in a moment. It's inconsequential. When I'm trying to talk about a particular player, I'm going to zoom in as much as possible, as long as the resolution stays sharp. I think why I like this one for a Lions perspective, or from a Lions perspective in 2026, is because quick wins by McNeel can only help Aiden Hutchinson. I'm just damn tired of some of the discussion about Hutchinson. Just get over it. Some of you were wrong, completely wrong. You're talking about an all-pro caliber guy who can get to the quarterback. His average time of sack, his average time of quarterback hit is not astronomically high at all. No other guy is getting to the quarterback as much as Hutchinson is over the course of 4 years, really in Detroit's history, to my knowledge. But in any case, they need McNeel to try to produce. Look, if he gets to 5 or 6 sacks for the year, great. What really has to happen is, besides being healthy, he needs to apply consistent pressure and win these one-on-ones like I just showed you. Kind of a unique sack here, like I said, or opportunity to talk about McNeel projecting forward to get sacks. I should say it's a quarterback hit, but really weird play at the end. He disrupts and dislodges Tyler Booker. Look, Tyler Booker, the rookie right guard for the Cowboys, had a great year, in my opinion. He was one of the guys I remember in that draft that I was hoping that the Ravens would look at. The right tackle's horrible here, right, in trying to help out this tight end. Tight end is going out to get Hutchinson. So what that ends up doing with the offensive line all kind of sliding to the right-hand side of our screen, it's play action. So Dak is reverse pivoting, a little play fake to the running back. I mean, it's a horrible job by the right tackle to try to get out here. But again, you have a 3 technique in McNeel, who's responsible for the B gap. And if you're only going to block him with a guard, I know the center's working that way as well, eventually he's going to be able to dislodge or get away from him. This is the second effort type thing. I felt like McNeel, I didn't think there was bad film in 2025, but I did feel like he was a little bit more explosive as the year progressed, as the year went on, basically when he was able to get downhill. I do like his get off here initially as Booker is stepping to the right. Everyone on the offensive line is moving to the right. I think the just right tackle has really bad awareness here as far as where Hutchinson is and what Hutchinson's probably going to do. But McNeel is taking Booker and dislodging and disrupting his path. Goes down as a sack and a forced fumble. I guess it was a backwards pass from Dak Prescott to Ferguson, and the refs blew the whistle. Look, there's some good film from last year, but it's not necessarily consistent. How much of that is on McNeel? Some. There's not bad film. What I will say is there's some times where I feel like he's used in a place that other defensive linemen couldn't play, or his pass rush skills are not necessarily being highlighted. This is one of them, even though it works. This is a 2nd and 19. The game was over from the standpoint of who was the better team, but the Cowboys had made it close. They're only down by 10 here. This is a 3+1. So Hutchinson, Muhammad, McNeel, and then you have the 4th rusher is Barnes. Oftentimes, Barnes would drop out and be a quarterback spy. And so the way this is going to work, and the ways to work in McNeil's favor, and I think could work in the future, is the running back and the left tackle are going to deal with Hutchinson. And then the tight end is going to just try to get in the way of Muhammad over here off the right side, such that the center can pull. So effectively or functionally, the numbers are working in Dallas's favor, in my opinion. If they double team or combo / chip both edges, and you are only rushing 3, I'm talking about not necessarily just this play, but Barnes so often dropping out or slow rushing things, if you will. McNeil's also double teamed as well. There's 2 players who could theoretically block him depending on his path. If he went this way, Booker would deal with him. Booker actually peels off for some reason, and McNeel is able to shed the right tackle pretty quickly, get a quarterback hit. I don't think I would want to see as much 3+1 on 3rd downs. This is 2nd and 19. It's still a catch. I will zoom in. Like I said, I'm going to do more of this in 2026. This is when, if he's not, getting off the ball and attacking immediately, this is what I like, is that, 1.2 to 1.5 seconds into the play, Alim Mcneill retains his explosiveness, his ability to shed blockers off of him and then continue to attack and get to the quarterback. At his best, though, right, is a quick, explosive first step / get off, and then the efficient 2nd, 3rd strike or reaction, if you will, to be able to get to the quarterback, or if it's a run play, attack the running back. I know it's fashionable to downplay or talk bad about Detroit's defense in 2026. The secondary definitely is a huge question mark, right? At least they've built options or depth there. In my opinion, regardless of injuries, there had to be some schematic shifts anyway. I like the 3+1. I do. I think that it might be more important moving forward to actually put 4 defensive linemen on the field in those obvious passing situations and figure out ways to creatively attack the quarterback that don't involve as much quarterback spy from a 3+1 personnel standpoint. 3+1, what I mean is 3 defensive linemen, in this case, Hutchinson, Muhammad, and McNeel, plus the 1 being Barnes. A couple of more plays to talk about McNeil's usage. Now, look, this is 12 personnel against the Rams. Along with recovering from injury, there's times where he's being asked to, or he was asked to play a position that might minimize his ability to get to the quarterback. But it's 12 personnel, so you do have to match it. The Lions they have not been, and we don't anticipate them being a base nickel defense like the Seahawks, Ravens, Chargers, and Texans. They have a base nickel DB on the field. In this case, it's 12 personnel, so the Lions are in their base 4-3. Now, you may say, Coach, doesn't look like a 4-3. I'm referring to Barnes, Rodriguez, and Campbell as your three, quote, inside linebackers, and really you've just walked the Sam linebacker up to create what I refer to as an underfront. Some people call it a slid 50. You can do this from 3-4 personnel at all as well, excuse me. That's why some people refer to it as a slid 50. In any case, it's play action. McNeel is briefly having an offensive lineman grab his face mask. Over off on the other side, I think that's Davenport being held for a period of time. I guess it's just not long enough to call. Look, I'm just going to get this out. The Rams get away with a lot on the offensive line. They have for years. It's there to see if you want to look at it. I'm only choosing to highlight this one particular instance of it. McNeel wasn't held for a really long period of time, don't get me wrong. I think they're in run mode, they being Detroit's defense, but by the formation and the players that they've got out on the field. And then the play action catches them off guard for whatever reason. There's two eligible receivers off screen to our left. One is actually a tight end, so this is 13 personnel. I think I have it mislabeled as 12. And then Devontae Adams makes a ridiculous catch over here near the sideline for the Rams. You have to match personnel, okay? And the DN depth, I feel like, at times kind of forced or made it the best option to put McNeel here. And what I mean is Davenport missed so much time throughout his career, but especially in Detroit, number one. Muhammad is more of a pass rusher. He's not on the field in that particular play. Mind you, Barnes was one of the edge defenders. Davenport was the other. Muhammad is actually on the field here. It's another 13 personnel group. I have it mislabeled as 12. It's a play action pass. They're matching personnel again. Now he's in more of a 4-eye, but the camera is kind of angled a little bit or canted for us, so you could classify this as a 3 technique. It's a B-gap defender. Normally when you get this type of shade 1 almost tilted, 4 head up here, you've normally got a 3-eye, or 4-eye, or maybe a 3 on the backside. But in any case, like I said, 13 personnel. Hutchinson is going to get the tight end stepping to him first, and then the tackle. I think they're running a stunt. I'd like to see McNeel be a little bit more explosive up the field here. He kind of gets a little surprised by the wide hands of the guard. Rewind that a little bit so you guys can see it a little better. Maybe I should have zoomed in. The wide hands of the guard, grabbing around him. He definitely gets controlled for a moment because he can't get upfield enough. And what I mean by getting upfield, I think they're trying to generate something where he's getting upfield and then Hutchinson's going underneath. Basically, a TE stunt. There's a hold in the middle of the field, so none of it matters. Really, it ends up being a penalty on the lines. I think it's Hallett against one of the tight ends. Incomplete pass. Davenport kind of gets some pressure on a stunt. My idea for you basically moving forward is I'd like to see Hutchinson and McNeel on the same side more often, kind of like we got there. This is a 2nd and 10. I'm really talking like obvious pass situations to an extent. Here's another one involving McNeel as a 5 technique. Really cool stunt on 1st and 10. It ends up working out even though it's a missed tackle from Brian Branch. Like I said earlier, I get it that it's in vogue to talk about or downplay what Detroit's defense is going to do. I think that between Shepard and Dan Campbell and all the other coaches on staff, I think they'll do a pretty good job. This is base 4-3 personnel and what I would call an underfront once again or a slid 50, where you've got a nose tackle or a shade. That's an A-gap defender. McNeel is the 5 technique. That's a C-gap defender. And then your Sam is walked up. So Sam meaning you've got a Will linebacker, Alex Anzalone, a Mike, Jack Campbell, and then the Sam here is Derek Barnes. The blitzer is spot shadow down here in the bottom left-hand side of the screen. It's going to be Brian Branch, and what they're going to do is take the nose tackle, step him out, and then bring Branch through the A-gap. None of this really necessarily has anything to do with McNeel. Basically, they wouldn't have put McNeel there if he couldn't do the job, and I don't think they had other guys who could be as effective on first down in run situations as a 5 technique and then shift or move to a 3 technique or a pass rushing nose tackle on obvious passing down. So that's a credit to McNeel that he can do that. I guess what I'm saying is I'm glad now that they have depth to where he may not have to. Tyleik Williams, exceptional college technique against the run as a 3 technique, and I think that pretty much held up, especially as the season progressed. It's a really great blitz call, if you ask me, by Shepard, whether it's run or pass. Anzalone occupying the center, The shade nose tackle stepping out, and then Branch blitzing through the A gap. So they filled all the run gaps against a one-back set. Jack Campbell, and then I think it's Tyleik Williams end up cleaning this up. The focus isn't really on McNeel there, I understand. He can do this. He can line up here as this 5 technique against 12 personnel, 21 personnel, etc. That's a credit to him. It shows some of his versatility. What I'm saying is, as far as sack production for being disruptive, I think this is the best spot for him, and that's a 3 technique. Again, we'll do 2 more plays here. This is 2025 film, that crazy game against the Giants in Week 10. Whether he's a 3 technique or a 2-eye, which is like inside shade of the guard, if he's getting solo blocks, one-on-one blocking schemes, then we need him to win, right? We need him to win. The blocking rule for the right tackle here is obvious. He's comboing Hutchinson out to the corner, but what it ends up doing is it ends up leaving McNeel one-on-one with this right guard, and he's going to be disruptive, along with the fact that Anzalone plays this downhill right now. Right guard for the Giants, a little bit overrated if you ask me, that the way that he played that game, and number 1, and number 2, what he thinks of himself out on social media. Because he combos up to the corner so quickly, that allows Hutchinson to end up overpowering and winning against the tight end, number 1. Number 2, it's difficult to deal with a 3 technique into the boundary if you're running to that side. In this case, they leave him alone, combo the nose tackle. They leave the right guard alone, and they combo the nose tackle, try to get up to Anzalone, and you can see the job where McNeel ends up flashing on this side. So briefly reached. So briefly, the right guard's helmet beats him to the play side, to the right-hand side of our screen, and you can see McNeel flashes back over the top. I guess he doesn't necessarily get credit for it. It's Hutchinson and Anzalone. I think McNeel as a run defender is very, very good. And to me, what I hope happens this year is that the DN depth trickles down and allows him to stay as a 3 technique as much as possible. I'm talking about with Wanham, Derek Moore, Hutchinson, and Barnes, that we see him a little bit less of that 5 technique or even that 4-eye that I believe kind of limits him as a pass rusher, if in fact it is a pass play. Last play that I'll show you here again, it's from 2025. He's playing as a 3 technique. 21 personnel for the Vikings here in Week 17. I'm not down in Shepard, right? Things worked great early on. But from a McNeel standpoint, him returning from injury and then also his usage, I think had some impact in his productivity, be it sacks or, yes, in fact, tackles. And I'll go one step further. I do think the scheme had to evolve a little bit. They'll be forced to do so probably this year, maybe move to more of a zone-based system, even though Dan Campbell has quite obviously said he prefers to play man. Good luck if you're going to do that without some of your best coverage guys out there, especially Brian Branch. He made the whole, if you ask me, Branch made the whole system work from a coverage standpoint. In any case, McNeel is going to pinch underneath here. So what I mean by that is McNeel is going to try to get and stay into this gap and penetrate. In addition, because as a result of the tight end step, Hutchinson's going to try to win to the inside. So the combination of those 2 things is really going to disrupt this power play. Jack Campbell folds over the top. Anzalone is there. They're really trying to play it to this safety by taking on what I would say is more of a spill mentality. McNeel doesn't impact the play as far as getting a tackle, but this is the type of explosive first step that I'd like to see with him. Other than the pad level being, if you ask me, slightly higher than maybe we saw at times in 2024. I want to see him in attack mode. I don't feel like 5 technique or even 4-eye. 4-eye is inside shade on the tackle, so it would be like in here, that type of alignment, as opposed to outside shade of the guard. I feel like 4-eye and 5 technique, even though McNeel can do it, he's got the capability to do it, the arm length, the explosiveness, strength, all of those things, and the technique. I feel like personally for him, as far as from a production standpoint, he'd be better off playing in a 3 or a 2-eye as much as possible. From all the reports in the offseason, completely healthy. He did play in 10 games last year. He's on the field a lot, in fact. That's a good thing and a bad thing. it's a bad thing because he was less productive, right, in those 10 games. But um, I've given you part of my theory that it's based on what he was asked to do. He was able. The good part of it is that he was able to withstand playing a lot of snaps. I would estimate that he was on the field at least 70% of the time, maybe even as much as 75. I don't know that to be sure. I just kind of glanced at his game stats and looked at the percentage of plays that he was on the field and just did an aggregate or quick math on my own. That number sounds right for me for a guy coming off of injury. Now moving forward for me, um, I would say that the depth they have built is a positive. I don't want to see McNeel on the field 95% of the time, and I don't think Hutchinson should be either. In previous seasons, Hutchinson kind of had to. And those two guys, McNeel and Hutchinson, are, I think, a little bit of an interesting comparison because, of course, Aiden returned from a really difficult injury in 2024, right, to be dominant last year. 14 and a half sacks, 35 quarterback hits. I don't go off pressures because people, some people report pressures differently. I mean, they are real. I understand that, quarterback pressures impacts the game. I recognize it. I just don't refer to it statistically. Quarterback hits to me is a little bit more definitive. I think McNeel could go out there in 26 and put up 5 to 7 sacks, 12 to 14 hits, be a quarterback hit, excuse me, and be a very good player against the run. I don't think it's possible for him to go out there and put up Aiden Hutchinson numbers. That would be amazing, right? But he's just got to cause disruption against the run and the pass, right? That'll help the defense, make up for the losses in the secondary, obviously. Those two guys, I think, are your 1 and 2 in a best case scenario. In this instance, 2026, McNeel is the guy kind of still returning from injury, hopefully to full health. Last thing about Hutchinson, I feel like I have to get this out. You're talking about a guy who has 43 sacks, 100 quarterback hits in 4 seasons, regular season stats, forced 5 fumbles, maybe it's 6, 5 interceptions, and like 13 PDs. So I guess there's people out there who still think he's not good enough. So it follows then that those are probably the same people who think there's no way that Alim Mcneill will be good enough in 2026 either. I have a fundamental disagreement with those people, whether they're commenting on my videos or whether it's other people's comments that I see online. I think Aiden Hutchinson starts for every team in the NFL. I've gone on record as saying that. Gets on the field a ton. That's missing the point, if you ask me, at times. Well, as it relates to Alim Mcneill, he will fulfill, both of those guys, they'll fulfill their role. Basically, whatever Shepard asks them to do, they will accomplish their responsibility and still try to be as disruptive as possible, especially on rundowns. But when it's 3rd and 8, for me, I want to see McNeel and Hutchinson either lined up together or some type of stunt to utilize McNeil's ability to play downhill and the second or third engagement. Recall the stunt that I showed you where Rodriguez set the pick. Of course, McNeel got a free run. I'm not saying that that's going to happen 8-10 times in one season, but McNeil's ability to overwhelm people with a second or third contact, I think sets him up well to be that stunt or that loop guy when a Mike linebacker or even a defensive tackle sets a pick. They hope to get pass rush impact right from Derek Moore or DJ Wanham. I think it's interesting that Jack Campbell had 5 sacks last season, part of a blitz package, obviously. But at the same time that Campbell contributed 5 sacks, he also played really high-level pass coverage on running backs. And, man, I think that's a very rare combination. You got Anzarike, Tyleek Williams. There's other guys who have promise. Ahmed Hassanin, Gil Howard from Texas Tech, I believe, Wingo. Those last 2 are more D-tackle types, with Hassanin being an edge guy. I feel like Chris Smith and Lacey are cut from the same mold, more of like a 4-eye, 5 technique type player. Maybe last year, Shepard and those guys on the defensive staff felt like McNeel was better in that 5 technique role than Smith and or Lacey in a given week if those guys were actually active. I'm talking about getting on the field on some of those 12 personnel or 21 personnel groups that I showed you. To me, Hutchinson and McNeel, they're the guys driving the car. They're the engine. If they can get consistent pressure on the quarterback, then other complementary pieces, Wanham, Moore, maybe another D tackle, great, and they can recoup the lost statistical contribution from Muhammad. Obviously, to me, this defensive line has to be a driving force. Maybe set the pace a little bit, and for my money, Alim McNeill is the second biggest chess piece they have along the defensive line. I'd like to see him used on stunts more often, picks specifically, to allow him to get matched up with maybe running backs peeling off, or an offensive lineman who's out leveraged for a moment. Very similar to what the McDonald and Mentor system does a lot. I think that Detroit, I'm going to use the word should, and I do not enjoy using that word. I think they should move towards more of a variable four-man rush scheme. And what I mean by that is still rushing four, but not having it always be the same four players that lined up. Essentially, bringing a nickel DB, an inside linebacker, or a corner, and someone dropping out. That's the usage that really fits with a Derek Barnes on the field on third downs. There'll be different looks, I know. Sometimes we'll see Moore out there. Sometimes we'll see Wanham on 3rd and 8 as the other edge defender opposite of Hutchinson. And in some cases, it will be Barnes. They've got a lot of different looks they can use. McNeel fits in all of them, in my opinion. His best role, in my opinion, is a 3 technique on rundowns, a 3 technique on pass downs, who's allowed to attack and or be used as part of a stunt package to to accentuate his skills that I think are pretty obvious. We just hope he's healthy and they can take advantage of it as much as possible. In any case, if you guys enjoyed this film study, look at Alim McNeill, please let me know in the comments section. I intentionally try to hold as much of my comments as possible to the end of the video. I feel like I'd rather show film early, and then the hardcore fans who want to know my summary thoughts, so to speak, can get that at the end. If you think other Lions fans would enjoy this film study of Alim McNeill as training camp begins, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach. Appreciate you guys' time.